Hello, this is Melissa with the Rogue Frontier. Today I am here with a most special person for me. So this is Cheryl Munroe. We're here in Wyoming. She is a Wyoming frontier woman, if there ever was one. We call her Mo, that's her nickname. She is, for me, family. She has helped me when I needed help the most. And I would like to say that I'm unique in that, but I'm not. Cheryl does that for everybody. She has adopted people, she has turned people's lives around, and she does it because she cares. Simply that. With that, I will let you introduce yourself.
Let's see, I was born and raised at Arapahoe, Wyoming, which is on the Wind River Indian Reservation. My parents had a small acreage there. We had cattle and sheep, and we rented land to put up hay and everything. Rode a school bus, got on a school bus like 6 o'clock in the morning and rode with the high school kids to town and then back out to the reservation school where I went to school 1st through 8th grade.
So did you go to town in Fort Washakie, or did you or were you in
I went to
Lander?
Riverton. Right.
Okay.
We were on that part of the reservation near Riverton. And so the Arapahoe, we went to Riverton. So my 9th through 12th grade, I went to Riverton, to high school.
And it's pretty unique. I mean, you were a white family living on the reservation, right? How did that happen?
Well, when the Indians were moved and put on reservations, Chief Washakie befriended the white man. And Sacagawea was a Shoshone Indian girl and everything else. And also, Chief Washakie provided scouts for the army and the cavalrymen and everything. And so the Shoshone Indians chose the Wind Rivers there because they had lower land, plus they had mountains and everything else. And so then the government was moving the Arapahoe Indians to Oklahoma. And it was a very bad winter. And so then Chief Washakie said they can't go any further. He said, let them camp on the lower end of the reservation, and in the spring you will move them. And they never got moved.
Oh, really?
And so that's why the two tribes were there, the Shoshones and the Arapahoes and everything.
Do you have any Indian descendants?
I do have some blood in me, but in those days it didn't mean anything, and I'm part Cherokee.
Okay.
And stuff where that came from.
Okay.
But then they took the Indians. You didn't own the land. They did not own the land. They never owned the land. They never felt they owned the land. But they allotted each family like 40 acres and 20 head of cows. So they were mostly, they traveled. They did not stay in one place. And so therefore, a lot of them sold their pieces of land. So the pieces of land and the reservation also had some deeded land that belonged to people that had it deeded. Okay. So there was reservation land and deeded land all together there.
Okay.
And things.
Were you fairly unique though, as a white family living on the reservation?
No.
Okay.
No, we were all treated pretty fairly. It's the same.
And there were quite a few other white families living on the res?
Oh yes, okay. Yes. There's a lot of farmers that still farm up there because it was a rich farmland.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Wind River Reservation, as I understand, is one of the largest in the United States. Is that right? Mm-hmm. It's pretty far to drive across it. I think 50 miles or more.
It's large, and it goes like to the Wind River Canyon as you go to Thermopolis. It goes up to Du Bois, Wyoming. It's huge. It's big. It's very, very large.
Now, did you live on a part fairly remote? Was it a very long distance for you to get to school every day?
No, we only lived like about 4 miles from Riverton.
Oh, okay.
And it was probably about 6 miles to Arapahoe school.
Okay.
So it wasn't that hard to get to and from.
Okay.
And everything.
So knowing what I know about you, did you like school?
Well, I'm a family and consumer sciences teacher. In those days, It was called home ec. And when I was in 7th grade, I had this wonderful, wonderful lady. Her name was Mrs. Bournemouth. I still remember her. She was awesome. And I decided in seventh grade, that's what I was going to
Okay,
teach.
so you were destined to be a teacher.
Yeah, I was destined.
You had a good mentor, and
she was awesome.
Was she a home ec teacher too?
She was the home ec teacher.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And then we also did 4-H and everything. And my mother was a 4-H leader, longtime 4-H leader. And we took cattle, and I did sewing and cooking and gave demonstrations and did a lot of different variety of 4-H projects.
I want to say that one of the reasons why I feel that you're so much like a mother to me is my mom was very much the same way. Like, she cooked, she knit, she painted, she made just the most amazing food, which you do as well. And one of the greatest things about Mo is that whenever you come to her house, she has food for you.
There's always food.
Always food of some wonderful kind, and a dessert and coffee. And it's just the most welcoming environment. And there's always people coming to visit, which is wonderful. Like me, I can call Mo up and say, I'm headed your direction and I'll be there in 4 days. And she says, you're welcome. So
that's it. We have an open door policy. People come and go, and sometimes when they need a little extra boost, they can stay here and get on their feet again and go on with their lives, you know. Sometimes you're just a sounding board and listen, and talking is a way of healing.
It is.
And things, and so that's what we do.
I think you and I talked about the same thing day in and day out for 2 months.
But, you know, that's one way to get rid of it.
Yes.
You've got to get it out and get rid of it. And I think in my trials in my life, it gave me a better perspective to help my students. And for me, teaching is not a job, it's a passion. I get up every morning, I'm ready to go. I walk down the hallways and I make sure I know my students' names, and I talk to them, and they'll ask how you're doing, and I just say, it's another day in paradise. And they laugh, and some of them are starting to do the same thing. And I just think sometimes checking in with people helps them get through the day, to let somebody know that they know who they are, they're not a number. And that's what's so good about your smaller schools. There's no child left behind. We all know how to help each kid, and we all do our best. And
I think you see everybody, Mo. Like, you will make an effort. You enter a room and you will touch or make eye contact or say how you doing with just about everybody. And I'm gonna just tell you all, we've got animals circling around our feet, and there will probably be one that hops up on Mo, whether it's dog or cat, or, you know, even the cows might look through the windows, because
we have some 4-H.
We have a menagerie here.
We have some bulls that were raised as 4-H calves, and it's nothing for you to step out the door and they'll be right here on my lawn. I've only mowed the lawn once this year. The cattle have taken care of it because it's so dry. This is where it's greener, and boy, they're right here. You have to move that one out of the way to get in your car and everything.
So she is, as I said, a frontier woman. She is not just soft. She has a big heart and she's loving, but she is tough as nails too. So let's talk a little bit about the adversity that you've had in your life.
Well, I had a really good family life when I was a child. And, you know, a lot of my traits come from my mother. Her mother died when she was 2 years old, and my grandfather raised the family by himself.
Oh, wow.
And so she knew how to give and sacrifice and everything. And so when this family came along, she still was giving, sacrificing. Because we lived a few miles out of town, when I started going to the town school, all the kids would come on Weekend Star Place. We'd have taffy pulls, hot chocolate, baseball games. I mean, it was just a gathering place. Everybody came. Everybody was welcome. And it was, you know, something we always did. We didn't think anything else about it.
Your whole family is just indoctrinated in the belief of just welcoming people into the house.
Yep. And so I went to high school in Riverton, went to college for 2 years, Casper College, and then Central Wyoming in Riverton. Then I worked for 2 years. Then I went back to the University of Wyoming and finished my degree. And then I went back and taught at Fort Washakie School on the reservation for 10 years before I left and came here to encampment. And my first husband, I loved him, but I couldn't like the way he handled things, did things. He was very abusive. And the day I left, I grabbed my baby and I walked out with the clothes on my back and started all over again.
Because you feared for your life.
I feared.
He had threatened you multiple
he had threatened
times,
me
right?
multiple times. And he had even shot at me earlier in our relationship. So I was married to him for 13 years.
13 years.
And stuff. So I you know, you
so
can
what
start
made
over.
you stay?
Well, responsibility. We were buying a ranch, and I basically was the breadwinner because I was teaching, and I had a monthly income, and people relied on you, and everything else. And that was my home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that honestly was my home. And I was born and raised on the reservation. I had a lot of friends. I have family there and everything else, both Indian family and white family. And, I could go someplace, and sometimes when I'd have to leave, he wouldn't let me take our one vehicle, and I'd walk, and there was always somebody that would pick me up and give me a ride, whether it was an Indian, whether it was white. They knew me, and everybody took care of me and knew what was going on and just helped, But when I finally decided to leave, I came down and interviewed for this job in Encampment, Wyoming. And I decided the good Lord, my mother always said, if you believe in the good Lord, he will show you the way. And I had decided if I was offered this job, then I would take it. If not, I was going to go back and get my master's degree, is what I was going to do. I just needed to do something different because I was in a stalemate. I was not happy. It wasn't working out.
You were essentially trying to survive.
Right, I was. You had to protect yourself and your child.
Mm-hmm.
Everything
How
I did.
old was your child at that point?
Lau was 3.
Okay.
Lau was 3. And so when I came here, my cousin was the VOAG teacher here. And so I had family here in Encampment.
Okay.
And things, yeah.
So tell that story, because it's special what happened with you in this job that you got here in Encampment, right? You had to do this kind of sneaky thing.
Right, I did. To get away, I had to hide my child. And when I left, then my husband had the Indian police stop me to take my child away from me. And I didn't have him. And I had sent him with some other friends. And then when I got off the Indian reservation, then I got my boy back and then came here and stuff. And he stalked me. He stalked me. And so when I got here, everybody knew to look out for me. And even, a friend up there, he would call me and say, he's on his way, you need to hide. And I would.
And you started teaching right away, right?
Right.
You got here and you were like day one in the school.
I was teaching.
How did it work for you to go from being on the reservation in that environment and deep roots in that place to a place where you had family, but it was all new? You had fear of your husband coming back. You had your child to take care of, and you were teaching. How did you juggle all of that?
Well, the thing is safety. You think of safety. And when I started teaching, then I met people here through the children, through my students.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'd have to take my son to meet and leave him with his dad, I would have to take somebody with me, because if I didn't, he would try to run me off the road, work me over, beat me up, or something. So I'd always take somebody with me. Then he was good.
So you had a good grounding from your family and showing care and love, and yet you had a really difficult time with your first husband. Did you ever feel like, I'm gonna get him to where he needs to be? I mean, obviously you stayed.
I thought I could help him.
And what convinced you that?
Well, I think sometimes families, when they have problems, instead of sitting down and working it out, like when my brothers and I would have a fight, my mother made us stay right there. And I mean, it was argument, knockdown, drag out, but when we were done with it. And there's so many families that when you have differences, like my husband would go stay with his grandparents, the other brother would go stay with an aunt and uncle. And they never ever...
They ran away from
they never ever settled this water in between. And I think that's happened to a lot of families. A lot of our parenting skills are lost. And we used to have grandparents that lived with us. and they helped with this. I mean, you don't know how to be a parent until you're a parent. You don't have any training on this. And when the grandparents, when you had the extended families, they were there, were kind of neutral and would help you out and kind of show you what parenting was like. And then you were better parents because they were there to help guide you. Now we don't have that. Very few grandparents are close or even live with the families anymore. And so, you know, it's tough. It's
yeah, my
really
children only had one grandparent, and he chose not to live near us. And I think, to your point, it plays on the mind of children that they're not worthy of the attention of their family members. Beyond their, you know, if you have loving parents, it's nice to be loved by your parents, but to know that you have a wider audience of people that show their love for you.
Right. Yeah, I had an older brother and a younger brother, and I can remember being so mad at my mother. And I told her, I said, well, I must be adopted. You love my brothers more than you do me. And she said, no, just a minute. When you're adopted, you're chosen. We would have never chosen you. You're unnatural born, so we had to keep you. So after that, when we'd have an argument, I go, I wish I was adopted.
Oh my God.
And, you know, teaching marriage and family and different things. And I've told that story over the years. And you'd be surprised how many parents that had adopted children come in and say, thank you.
That's right.
Our kids feel like they're special now because they were adopted. But my mother, you know, like I was going to run away from home, she'd pack my suitcase. I'll show you, I'm just going to run away. Here, let me help you run away. It wasn't long that you brought your suitcase and yourself back.
You know, I actually did that to my son once. He threatened, he's like, I'm going to go take the train and leave. And we said, okay. We packed his suitcase and drove him to the train station. And he just started crying. He's like, you're going to give me up. And I said, no, we're not going to give you up.
Lyle, one time, he was probably kindergarten, first grade. And we're driving out here to the ranch. And he was just being obnoxious, terrible. And the oldest stepdaughter that I had, she was 11 years older than Lyle. So basically, Lyle had all these adults around him. And he was just being terrible. And I told him if he didn't straighten up, he was going to walk home. And so I made it to our turn off of the highway. And it's about a mile into here. And I said, now get out. And he looked at me. I said, get out. And he got out and I drove off. And, you know, after that, when I told him I was going to just leave him, he knew when I said I was going to leave him, I was going to leave him. So he was good. Changed his mind.
So he's an only child, but he has been completely encircled by Mo's extended family.
Right.
Like me, right? Like he treats me to some degree like, you know, a sibling.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of time together, but when we're together, I just feel the same from Lyle that I feel from you. So he picks up what you put down in terms of relationships.
Yeah.
And yet
I have to tell this story. Melissa, she does this plunge in ice water. And we didn't have anything here, but we have a big reservoir. So Lyle went down there and chopped a hole in the reservoir so she could do the plunge into the ice water.
He was amazing. And the ice, you know, the ice was probably this thick. So he's using his chainsaw to cut a square out in the ice. And I thought it was going to be a simple thing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked. But that guy, like, he tugged and towed, and I will play the video because I have it on video.
Yeah.
And he had to rope it with one of his cowboy ropes to get the thing out. It was huge. And then, of course, I was in there for all of maybe a minute. You know, I'd go into the water, and it's freezing, and I'm freezing. And then I jump out of the water. And he probably spent a half an hour cutting the ice for my little splash. So yes, Lyle picks up what you put down in terms of relationships, but he's an only child. So has he ever?
Well, he's really not
like,
an only child.
Oh, that's
because
true.
Monty has 3 girls.
That's true.
The oldest girl, when she was a freshman in high school, moved here. And then the youngest daughter, the middle girl, she was 16 going on 36. She moved out, had her own apartment, did her own thing, worked, went to school full time and all of this. The youngest daughter, when she was in 6th grade, she moved here. And we never ever had custody of her. She just came here.
Just showed up one day.
And so, And then she just stayed, and we told her mother, and she told her mother that that's what she was going to do, and everybody was happy with it. And she just lived here. And she and Lau were very close to the same age and everything. And he and his sisters are very close. They're very close, all of them. And so they all support each other and everything else. Lau was the high school rodeo where he did bareback riding. Melissa was the rodeo queen. Kathy was the rodeo queen. Melissa was the pro rodeo series queen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, big time. I made all of her leather dresses and hauled her all over. She had to go get beautiful and pretty, and I got to wash the horse and bond with the horse and get the horse saddled so she could go out and be pretty, and everything. So we did that, yeah.
Oh.
And I was a package deal when I married Monty. I had a milk cow, I had a dog, a cat,
Some
a
horses?
kid, 23 brood mares and a stud.
Oh my gosh.
I come from the reservation. I had a lot of horses. I raised paints.
So you came with your own.
And Monty said the reason I married him, I needed horse pasture. And the reason he married me is he needed a wife that worked in town with an income.
And made some good food. Made some good food.
No, he would tell you that he never ever got a decent meal, he never got anything mended. He would tell you that. But for my first birthday here, he bought me irrigation boots and a shovel. And I was happy because I love to irrigate. And everybody thought that was awful. But I love to irrigate. I love to grow things. And here I couldn't have a garden because we had so many gophers and prairie dogs and everything else. So he said, you see this hay field out here? That's your garden. And so that was my garden and stuff. So and he was big and jolly and so good with all the kids. All the kids in town here loved him. And he traveled a lot with me when we would do competitions for the schools and everything. And he would go with us.
So you and I met at a trade show, the Wyoming Stock Growers Association, and you knew that I did tech, and you sat down next to me at one of the dinners. I think there were like 3 dinners or 2 dinners, and then you just started talking to me like you'd known me forever. You didn't, the formal is like, hello, I'm Cheryl, nice to meet you. How long have you been doing this? There was none of that. It was like, so you do tech. I'm missing some cattle. I'm wondering if your tech might work. We have this property, and it was just from there on. And then I'm invited to Christmas, and if it hadn't been a snowstorm, I would have been here. But it's been that way ever since. And I see you do it with everybody. There isn't any, warming up to say, I'm coming into your space. You'll just start talking to people. We had lunch today, and you just started talking to the guy whose leg was in a cast. I don't think you'd ever met him before.
Yeah, he was from where?
You were. I don't know. I can't remember.
A foreign country. They just come in.
Oh, he was from a foreign country?
His wife was from Colorado.
Okay.
And they'd come back for surgery to America.
Okay.
I forget what.
And you you probably even.
I figured he was in oil because it was a country that had oil, So we just visited.
But that's just most thing, and the way people know you, it's as if all the boundaries are dropped and trust is established immediately. And I would love to be more like that. I'm friendly with people, but I still kind of feel like, oh, there's a boundary there. I can kind of see that they don't know me and they're uncomfortable. And like, you just blow past that. Like, comfort doesn't, people stepping back and kind of doing that smile. You're just like, you're on with it. Like, I'm going to get to know you, and you can just sit there and be warm or chilly. It doesn't matter. I'm going to get to know you better.
I don't know. I've just always been that way.
Yeah.
But they say I work a crowd.
You work a crowd.
I don't really mean to, but that's just me. I visit,
You are the unofficial mayor of Encampment.
Yeah, right.
So you taught what grades from?
Well, at Warshke School, I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Okay.
Okay. And I did science, and I did an English. I did clothing and textiles. We only had like 4 machines, no tables. So we had to go to the lunchroom when they weren't using the kitchen tables to cut out things. So I had some kids doing beadwork, some doing macrame. We were doing all kinds of things while some were using the machines. Every kid finished a project.
And you let them do what they wanted. It wasn't like, we're going to make a pot holder now.
Right.
It was, everybody basically gets to do what they want to do to the extent of their skills, and you're going to support them.
Bags. We did a lot of different bags and stuff. Some wanted duffel bags, some wanted a bag for their pencils. You know, we did all this kind of stuff, whatever. And then when I came here and was working with high school, I had these students at encampment from 7th grade to 12th grade. And I had one young man that said, well, I'm not going to make an apron. And I go, well, I don't wear an apron either, so why should you make one? And so he said, I want to make a cover for my snowmobile. I said, well, go take measurements and we'll do that. Another kid wanted to make a cover for his gun. So I said, take measurements and stuff. And so we just made up our own patterns, and we got some different heavy-duty material that was waterproof and everything. And we'd line them and stuff. And so the young man that made the snow machine cover, you know, I said, we can just make up our own patterns. You just take measurements and draw it out and figure it out. So after he graduated and everything, he calls me and he goes, thanks. And I go, okay, thanks, Caleb. What did I do this time? And he said, I just got a patent. And he designed for his binoculars and everything else he needed when he went hunting.
Oh, wow.
And so he did that. He said, I just designed it and I got a patent and we're making them and selling them. And then probably about 6 years later, he called me and says, thanks, Mo. I said, well, what did I do this time? He said, I sold my patent for a whole bunch of money. I said, do I get a kickback? He said, no. No, I don't get anything. But
Wow,
I mean, it was cool
really
that they could just make what they wanted to.
So you had sewing, and then you also did
Culinary
cooking,
arts. Yeah,
right? Culinary arts. And that's the one I'm most aware of, because
that's what
you've gone back to school more recently, and you're taking these kids to state, right?
Like, and nationals.
And nationals, because you're that good. And you let them make what they want to make, right?
Right, yeah. The last time we did really well, they called me in December, here 2 years ago. And said, our teacher is no longer in your area and you have all the credentials. I was retired. And they said, you don't have to go get anything and we need you. Can you come? And I go, well, I'll think on it, because I was busy here on the ranch. Because my husband passed away in 2018. And so my son and I were trying to keep things going here and stuff. And so some of my former students that I taught half a day in encampment and then half a day in Saratoga there before I retired. And they called me, some of my younger kids that were older, Mo, we want you to come back, please. So I couldn't turn the kids down, so I went back. So I get there and they go, we want to compete at State Pro Start.
That was like 6 weeks in or something, right?
Yeah, you know, this is January. We competed in February.
Oh my gosh.
And stuff. And I said, well, the rules, I looked up the rules and it said we had to let them know in October if we were planning to compete. I wasn't here. And then in November, we had to submit the team, and I wasn't here. Would you call? So I called the state guy, and I've known him since he was a kid. And he said, Mo, if you bring them, they'll be ready. And I said, okay. So I told the kids, let's just do cakes or something like that. No, we're going to do the whole meal. So you had to make this complete meal on 2 little butane burners. You had to have a starter, which could be a salad, a soup, or an appetizer. And then you had to have an entree. And the entree was a protein, a vegetable, and a starch. And you had to have a dessert. And you had to create all this within an hour. Everything else. So the kids did the cake decorating, and they won that. And they were so good. One of the boys, his grades were too bad. He couldn't do it. And another girl that moved away. So they got another girl just to get in with them. And so there was only 3 on the team, and you could have 5 on your team. And there was only 3. And the 2 boys were wrestlers. So the girls, they were going to do a cake and they wanted chocolate and we were going to do all this. And it just didn't turn out. And I said, my mother has a recipe for a banana cake that's, you know, kick butt awesome. And so they decided to do it. And it was called a secret cake. We had to do a secret theme. And so we talked about it. So we made 4 layers. And then inside layers, we made we candied pineapple and cherries. And made it so it was like a banana split and put that in the middle.
Oh, cool.
And then they frosted the cake and they had shaved chocolate and everything else. And they created a rose out of fondant for the top. And I mean, it was beautiful. It looked like an elegant cake you'd go out for a nice dining meal. And then they wrote up the deal that said, you know, this cake looks like it's for a date night out, but really it's a surprise cake because it's a banana split. And when you cut into it, then all this stuff oozed out. And they won that. And they had never put it together as a group because they were all in different classes. So the boys were off at state wrestling competition. So the girl had to put it together that weekend when they weren't there and take pictures of it and finish up the portfolio and all this. So she was terrible at doing piping. And I said, ask one of the boys, let them do the piping, because your piping sucks. I mean, I was just honest with her. And she said, I know. But I said, you can do the fondant rows and all of that. And so I said, you guys are just going to have to work and talk about it and get it done. And so they did, and they were timed for an hour and had to get this all put together and all of this, and they did it. And so when they went in for their critique from the judges, the judges said, we can tell you guys have really practiced on this and worked together because you all talked and you knew what to do. And I'm like, okay, yeah, they really worked together, didn't they? So then when we went to do the meal, we did butter-basted bison tenderloin.
Oh my goodness.
And then they made a cowboy potato and grilled asparagus. And then they made a sauce to go with it. Ready for the Ward's dinner, and it was at the governor's gala. And this group of people were sitting next to us from Laramie. And the one mother's going, oh, my son has been practicing since September. And they're doing the meal, and oh my gosh, they've worked so hard on this. So they asked my parents, they said, what are your kids doing? Well, they're doing the cake decorating and they're doing the meal too. Oh, really? How long have they been practicing? They said, probably 3 weeks maybe. And so then when my students won the cake, those parents just like went, it's kind of, and then we got beat by Laramie by 1 point. So to me, that was okay.
Yeah.
They really did a nice job.
They needed something to strive for next year, right? Like if they'd won, it would have been like, we could do this in 3 weeks. We don't need to practice.
And so now then last year, the girls just did a cake because everybody was basketballing and going to state and wrestling and all of this. And so they did cake and they placed really well in the state competition.
So you...
Weeks maybe. And so then when my students won the cake, those parents just like went, it's kind of, and then we got beat by Laramie by 1 point. So to me, that was okay.
Yeah.
They really did a nice job.
They needed something to strive for next year, right? Like if they'd won, it would have been like, we could do this in 3 weeks. We don't need to practice. So you are tough, and you've had conversations with me that have been really tough and straight, and you've been honest with me when I needed to hear honesty and not somebody just trying to make me feel better. And yet you have this sense of humor that just breaks out when it's most appropriate, or even when it's not appropriate. That just it like breaks the feeling of intensity in people. And that, tell me, I mean, are you thinking these jokes before you say them, or do they just like slot right in there?
They just kind of slide in, But the thing is honesty is your best policy. And if I was teaching in a big school, I would probably be fired because I hug on my students hug on me. I mean, when they're in trouble someplace, they come to my room. If they can't find the kid, they usually know they're at my room and we're talking things out.
But you also don't play the whole, personal truth, or, you don't safe space anybody. You don't give them that thing that's out there and so pervasive that people need to be protected from themselves. You're just like, you're there physically present, but you're not making them feel like they're protected from anything, from their own accountability or their own problems.
Be responsible. I figure they need to be responsible. And I try to show them, like, instead of just fancy cooking, I try to show them, like, my 8th graders this year, we made biscuits. I showed them how to make biscuits. The next day they made biscuits. Then I demonstrated making a roux, and we made sausage gravy, And then we had some sausage gravy left over. So the next day we cooked potatoes and carrots and onions and celery together, put it together and made potato soup. I try to show them you don't throw food out. You repurpose it. You throw food out, you throw away money. And I think that's what's happened. We've taught our children to be cornucopia kids. They don't like it, they don't eat it, they throw it out. They need to learn to do with what they have. And I said, when you start going to school or having your own house, you're going to need to know how to do this. You're not going to be able to go and buy a meal and everything else. You're going to have to be able to live on ramen or something else, or plan ahead. You know, buy a roast, make a big roast with your potatoes and carrots and everything else, and what's left over, you can slice the meat and make a barbecue sauce with it. And I show them how to make a barbecue from scratch and do that. Or you can grind it up and add mayonnaise and pickles and everything else and put on a sandwich and eat it like a ground up meat sandwich.
You also touch people personally, and I know you've mentioned to me a few times that you've had to help young women in situations not necessarily similar to yours, but women have to deal with a lot of things when they're young. And
right. Yeah, I had one girl that would come every night, one night a week in the winter. I would open the classroom here in the encampment, and everybody would come. And I had one girl that would always come and stuff. And then afterwards, when everybody else left, I would take her to her house and where she lived. But she lived in a camper trailer, no water, no heat, nothing. And she would always have me wait until she got into her house and locked the door, because there was all kinds of other things going on outside at their home that was very threatening to her. And I always made sure she got home and that she was always okay and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, how did you find the time to do that? You had your own family. And I know that you're a teacher, so you're naturally wanting to help young people. But isn't it overwhelming, the amount? This is not middle America. This isn't suburbia. There are a lot of struggling people around here, whether it's a drug problem or money issues or violence or all kinds of. How does that not overwhelm you? You're in deep. Life happens to younger people in the country. It's not, you go through high school and then you get out and you go to college and you party. These kids see real life. They see death. They see unhappiness. They see poverty. How did you not feel completely overwhelmed by it?
We just do it. Monty was really, he was very good. That song, Wind Under My Wings? That's what he was. He let me be me and he let me do things, but he was my rock of Gibraltar. I always could come home to him and everything was safe. And he said, how many kids are we going to raise? And we had the neighbor boy, his mother got a boyfriend and moved away, and he wanted to stay here and finish school, so he lived with us. Well, first of all, we had his dog and his horse, and then we got the kid, and he lived here with us. And then we had another girl that her mother left her, abandoned her, and she was a senior. She lived with us until she graduated.
You had the family, and in the time that I've known you, you've been a hotel for cows. You had a young man who his wife left him, and he had his children. Their house had burnt down. He lived here for an extended period of time.
7 months.
7 months. It's just like whomever needs a place, you make it work.
Right.
And then, it doesn't overwhelm you.
No, and when I first started reteaching again in Saratoga, this one girl, she was a junior, nice girl. Her parents lived at Centennial. And in the wintertime, that Highway 130 is closed. And so when her parents couldn't get around to bring her to school, she would stay on this friend's couch or that friend's couch or that friend's couch. And I said, Cheyenne, I have 2 spare bedrooms now. If you'd like to come out here and stay with me when you can't go home. And she did.
Little girls, right, that had found themselves pregnant.
I have.
And you've saved lives, haven't you?
Well, when I first started teaching here, I had, probably over the years, probably 4 girls that came to me and thought they were pregnant. And you didn't have home tests in those days. And so I said, well, we'll take a urine sample. You give it to me. I'll take it to the clinic and we'll check it. And then come up negative, then we were fine. And if it came up positive, and the clinic goes, oh my gosh, you're going to have a baby.
Congratulations.
I said, thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
And then
oh.
I would go to the girl and we'd say, okay, you've got choices to make. Are you going to keep the baby? Are you going to give it up for adoption? We need to go talk to your parents. And I was kind of the buffer, and I went with them to their parents, and we all sat down and was rational, and then they would decide what they were going to do and stuff. So that's just, what you do. And the doctor come out and goes, you can't have children. You had a hysterectomy. And I go, So whose is this? And I said, no one needs to know. They will handle it, and they'll figure it out. Because little communities, everybody knows everybody else's business. It's good and it's bad because everybody's there to help you, but everybody's there to gossip too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, get the download on what you're doing and why you're doing it, and let you go on your merry way. But that's not you. You're not a seeker of information. You're a seeker of helping, however discreet it needs to be. I've seen it with me personally. So let's talk about one of our more recent friends we were catching up on today. This is a story that I've been witness to directly, and the turnaround I'll let you tell the story.
Here when I was retired and working a lot here on the ranch, and I was exhausted. And I'd gone over to the feed store in Saratoga and was getting some grain and things that I needed. And they go, man, you look like hell. And I said, I feel like death warmed over. I'm really tired. I'm just going to have to somehow come up with enough money to hire somebody to help. So as I walked out to the vehicle, this young man came out and he goes, Mo, I need a job. He said, when can I come to work? I said, tomorrow morning, come to the ranch. So he was here and he was very honest. He said, okay, first of all, I want you to know I'm a felon. He said, I had a really good job in Gillette, was making lots of money. And then when they closed all of the mines and everything else, I didn't have the money. My wife was doing drugs. I got into drugs and everything. And he said it was bad. And he said, I've gone to jail for this and everything else, but I'm cleaning myself up. And I said, well, I tell you this much. I don't like what you did in the past, but that's the past. So I said, with me, it's from this day forward, how you react, how you work, how you're honest, and everything else. And so he was living 30 miles away, driving to the ranch to work, driving back and forth. So I literally bought a camper trailer for him to live in here at the ranch. And he proved to be he was a good mechanic. He would build fence, he would irrigate, he would do anything and help, and had a lot of skill. And he'd been to school as a mechanic. So, he was very, very good. And I had him probably for a year and a half and stuff, and then we were going into the winter, and I could not pay him enough what he deserved because he was so good. And I said, you need a full-time job where you're going to have benefits. And I said, benefits are what you need. It's, and stuff. So a neighboring ranch here, a big ranch, big corporation, 10 miles away, their head mechanic was going to retire. And I talked to the manager and I said, this young man is worth having. He's a gold mine. And I said, he's very good. He's cleaned up his act and everything else. And I said, you need somebody like him. And so they took him on a trial basis. He has a place to live on that ranch. They've got their own house and everything else. And he worked with the head mechanic, and they found out how good he was. So when the mechanic retired, he took right over and everything else. And I helped him. I loaned him money when he needed money. He's always paid it back and everything else. And now he's not a felon anymore. He's received the acquittal from the governor. He brought it down to show me. And he's doing really well, and they love him. He's very responsible. If I need something extra, I can call him. He comes down when he's off work and helps.
But he slipped up a few times along the way. He was not, he tried, but he slipped up a couple times. So you kept him on, but how did you deal with the slip-ups and correcting him so that he stayed moving forward, but he also was accountable for his actions?
I just said, hey, you have got to not be part of that. You do not play their game. if you want to be in charge of you, then you don't play their game. You go by your rules. And I said, I don't like it. And you know I don't like it. And I said, you hurt me when you do something like this because I'm trusting you. And I said, you're breaking your trust in me. And I mean, that would shame me more than me yelling at him and stuff. And he said, I'm going to try harder.
We knew each other because he was around when I was staying here in sort of this recuperation phase. And his love for you was so abundantly clear. And I can only imagine you telling him that you were disappointed would really make him think twice about what he did. But he has gone through an absolute transformation. From what I can tell, he's just full-fledged citizen now. And what did you say? What did you tell me earlier?
Oh yeah, he called me the other night, just about a week ago, and he was so excited. He has joined the local fire department.
That's right.
And he's working on getting his EMT stuff too.
Wow.
So he can help run the ambulance and things.
And so, you said, don't thank me.
Yeah, well,
pay
he
it
said,
forward, right?
What can I do to thank you? And I said, you don't owe me anything. So you pay forward, you help somebody else. And that's what you do. And I said, you feel good enough now that you can give to others. When we get our own confidence and we feel good enough about ourselves, we can give to others. And I said, that's what you're doing. I'm very proud of you.
I don't know. I mean, your depth of caring for other people, tolerating things that probably other people would lose their patience with, and seeking it out. I mean, it's not even like you wait for it to just show up at your door. You seek out people by showing them that you see them, because that brings a whole level of, oh my gosh, somebody sees me, somebody cares. They lay it on, right? I laid it on. I had you, and there were times I knew I was doing nothing to help you in any way whatsoever. I would vacuum your carpet. I would do the laundry. I would find ways to thank you because I knew that I didn't have like the emotional ability to do much of anything else. And I felt like I needed to be your friend, and I was unable to be your friend because I just needed more than I could give.
But I think with me going through traumas in my life, and talking and crying and getting it out like you needed to do, then I could heal. Because you have to go through all these different stages. Whether you blame somebody, you're mad, you hate, it shouldn't have happened, and then you just got to get it out, cleanse your soul, and then you can go on. And I just think that's what you need to do.
Well, having worked through, I mean, to me, my own personal experience with you, it was all about a broken heart and not having been in a situation where I had to ever deal with that before. And it really came down to, Mo, the fact that I had not been raised to ever really be vulnerable. It was hide your emotion. Like you said before, you and your family worked things out. My family was one of the ones that like we would scatter to the wind. We didn't deal with anything. No, the elephant stayed in the room. Mm-hmm. And that was how I kind of lived life. It was like fight or flight. I would prefer not to fight. I would if I had to. But you like held on to me and let me be vulnerable for the first time in my life. And you didn't make me feel like I needed to be afraid of that. And as you know, I'm born again now, and I know you're not a regular churchgoer, but you have God in you like nobody I know. Like the depth of your roots and your stability and the core of who you are is just far greater than
when you're rural, we go to church every day.
Yes,
we deal with life, we deal with death, we deal with trial. Monty, my husband, always said, the good Lord understands when we're out here working Sunday and saving our livestock and everything else. He knows we're doing his work. And that was true. But I've been going to church a little more regular. Oh. One of my former students, he's opened up his dad was a minister here in town, and now he's come back as a young man with children that are grown, and he's the new minister. And he came out and he goes,
cool.
"Mom, I think you need to come to my church." So he had a special service last Sunday, and I was there.
Oh, nice.
I went
Very
for it.
nice. Very
Good
nice.
stuff.
So talk a little bit about the other half of your world, which is ranching. I mean, we're sitting here in the middle of your beautiful, spectacular, I should say, ranch in the fall. Trees, the colors out there on the mountains. In your life is your kids and your family, but it's also ranching. Like
Right.
it is.
Yes.
I think you probably think about your cows more than you think about your kids these days.
This time of year, they're all coming off of the forest. We take 156 animal units to the forest. We drive them horseback 25 miles. And so, and the timber, it's so much harder now than when it was when I was here, because we had a drought and then beetle kill, and you cannot even physically just plain walk through the timber. And
No,
to
I remember going up there with you. We were like weaving in and out on horseback, trying to find a trail that didn't exist anymore, and it's crazy up there, and I don't know
really
how
bad.
the cows do it.
And they can go places where you can't, and inner meadows where we used to go in and haul salt in, and different places, we can't even get in there to put salt in. So we make sure all the cows have their mineral and their salt and everything before they leave. And then if we get someplace where we can put some out, we will. But you don't want them to congregate in one place. And so we have to scatter them and make sure that we're not overgrazing in any place and things.
And you have this, I've seen the drifts, and, we saw the cattle drive, down the road and around the corner today. But your cows are magic. You push them out into the forest, and then just about mid-September, I guess when they start feeling the cool mornings, they just manage to meander back down the
And we
hills
still go up and the stragglers, we go up and ride and find them. And once you push them, well, see, Hog Park and stuff, it has about the same elevation as we have here.
Okay.
So you've got to push them up and top them out, then they'll come on home. And the thing is a lot of our cows have gone up when they were calves with their mothers. And now that they're replacement heifers and cows, they take their calves up and they know their way home.
They do. They show up at that fence line, and you're with your binoculars out there going, I think I've got 5 today.
Yeah.
And they just trickle down over, a course of a couple
But
weeks?
I've noticed since there's bow hunting and things now, we used to be able to go up the end of June, first part of July. And now the National Forest has backed us off to July 15th.
Oh.
And then it's so much harder, and it's so much more traffic to try to get them in there. It's really hard.
Because there's fishermen and
and backpackers and everything. And that's great, because we all need it needs to be multi-use.
Right, but there's lots of camper villages.
Right.
Like
but I would like to see us go back up the first part of July, and then the cows, when they start trickling down way early, because I don't have 156 up there, 156 pairs and stuff now, and things. They've been home. Probably, I'm going to say 90% of our cows are home.
Wow.
Right now.
That's great.
And things. And there'll be a few that drop off and are in the neighbors, and a few of theirs are on ours.
I remember you went up and trailered one down last year or something, like one stray.
Yeah.
And you share your lease with your neighbors, so they're looking out for your cattle, and you're looking out for
we share
theirs.
with the Silver Spur, which is a big ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got a gate that comes off of the forest and then comes down through the BLM, and there's an old dead cow skull hanging on the gate. We call it the skull gate, and the cows will congregate there, and then we sort off theirs and put theirs to their draw to the east where their ranch is, and we bring ours on down through to here. And it's weird because you'll be up there sorting, and those cows just kind of split. I'm going home here, I'm going home here, and that's just what they do.
So you're a commercial cow-calf operation. You've done that for how many years?
Well, I've been here since 82.
82.
Monty was here, I'm going to say 70s.
He's like 3rd generation, right?
Mm-hmm. 3rd generation here on this ranch.
And yet, commercial cattle people have a reputation for just, feeding and selling. But but that's not you.
You're going to tell the story of Big Mama.
Yes,
aren't you?
we are. We're gonna talk about Big Mama.
Well,
because there's logic and there's reasons why cow-calf people do what they do. Commercial cattle, it's all about making money.
Yeah.
And then there's Big Mama.
Yeah.
So
years
talk
ago,
about
our
Big
neighbor lost one of his leases. And so he had to sell 30 head of cows. So we bought 30 head of cows from him. And my oldest daughter is with the man that manages that ranch, see. And so she said, Mom, would you please buy number 78? She's so gentle and so friendly. She's not a normal cow. So we bought Big Mama.
And the 78 tag went away.
Yeah, the number 78 tag went away. We had them, when it was really bad weather, we put them in barns to calve and stuff. And this cow started, as we're walking through, this mean cow started to take my son. Big Mama stepped in between, knocked that cow out of the way. So if you're in the barn and they're wild or something, you have Big Mama in there. She just goes with you and settles everything down.
She's like you in cow form.
I guess so, I don't know. But anyway, so when we went to brand them, my son wouldn't brand her because he didn't want to hurt her.
Oh.
And she doesn't have 78 ear tag. Her ear tag says Big Mama. And so then she has a calf, but 3 of her quarters don't have milk, and she had one big tit on one quarter, and you milk it out, but the calf couldn't suck it, so you fed it on a bottle. Now she has no milk in any of the quarters. And last
She's still
year,
here? She's
yeah,
still breeding every year, right?
yeah, and she has a calf, and then you just give him colostrum, and you feed him on the bottle. Then you get another bum, you put him in with her, and she takes care of all of them. Last year, she helped me raise 5 bum calves.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I would go out here and you yell, come, babies. She brings them. I grain her. I feed all the calves on the bottles or buckets. And she takes care of them. The dogs can't chase her calves. She babysits them. She's just a nanny. So she will die here, just like Eeyore. We have a 2-year-old steer that he's born with his ears on backwards, so they flop down.
Oh.
And we couldn't get weight on him. And he's real gentle. He's kind of retarded too, but anyway, he's just, and so we keep him here, and the calves that we keep to feed out and everything else, he brings them to grain and lets them eat, and he's not mean or anything else. And when he's around, you can push him out of your way. He don't kick you, and you don't get kicked by anything else. He's just kind of there and everything. And then my granddaughter, she's raising show cattle. And so we put Eeyore, the steer, in there, and he works as a Gomer bull. Let you know when our heifers are in cycle, and then we take care of it. So we've got Big Mama and Eeyore, and they'll both just die here. I mean, what a ranch, you keep these two that'll never be anything, but they're here. So they kind of serve a purpose, kind of.
So I knew you when you were really struggling. Like when I first met you, you had retired from teaching, you were doing some substitute teaching. You had lost money just a few years before you retired, so your teaching income was lower.
Mm-hmm.
Monty wasn't here to help you run your ranch. Cow prices were low, and you were really struggling. And I remember saying to you, you could sell your ranch.
And what did I say?
I said, you're in this situation, you could retire and go live in a nice house and never worry about it again. And you said, hell no.
This is my lifestyle.
This is my ranch and my life, and I will leave this to my children. And you have not just turned it around here. And yes, cattle prices are higher, but you're back to teaching full time. You're running the ranch. You've made incredible repairs. You're investing in it. You're buying land. Everything has turned around.
I bought 3 more pieces of our land that we'd sold before back. I bought that back.
And that is just remarkable to me. I would have been just as in awe of you if you'd said, I'm out, I'm done. It's time for me. You're retirement age. Go enjoy the rest of your life.
What am I going to do? Sit down and watch soap operas and eat chocolate bonbons? No, I'm not going to do that.
No, you're not. You're going to die with your boots on.
I hope so.
Irrigation boots or cowboy boots,
Yeah,
one or the other.
either one, or I'll be out in the sewing shack doing embroidery for the neighboring ranches.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. You have that job too. You do embroidery, you do sewing, you make clothes for people, you do alterations, you've done wedding dresses.
A lot of wedding dresses.
This
week was princess. This week was homecoming dresses. I altered so many homecoming dresses. I don't care if I see any more sequins and sparkles.
Yeah. There's pretty much no hat that you don't have.
I don't knit or crochet.
You don't knit or draw the line there. But you do cross stitch. You just told me you made an ornament out of cross stitch.
I do cross stitching. I do beadwork, like Native American beadwork. I do that. So.
And we are surrounded by history, by touches of her family in so many ways, whether it's a book or a picture or just a piece of legacy, the boomerang up there. But
yeah, the boomerang, one of my students went to Australia and she brought me that back. Make sure that dog doesn't knock that over because she's right there hitting it.
Oh,
like that.
like that. But talk about this blanket. We brought the blanket into the picture for a reason.
Well, this blanket has been danced in. It's a shawl, is what it is. And we believe that it has healing power. So when some of us have troubles or are ill, I put this on you. And when Melissa came to stay with me, she was having a hard time. And I gave her the healing blanket because it's a shawl. And it's sacred because it's been danced in. And
you brought it into my room and you put it on my bed.
I said, here, I covered you up with it and I said,
under this blanket.
And it'll help. And she said
it did.
It did. So that's what I have. It was given to me by a Native American and they had danced in it.
I believe that the way that you live, you in particular, you've drawn people to you that were in trouble, but you've also drawn generational love to you, and you share that. You turn that around and you pay it forward. There's a huge gap in this generation of faith and well-being and love, and I really hope that I can become more like you because the world needs more Moes. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, share it.
Believe in the Lord. He will take care of you. Sometimes your prayers aren't answered, but it's for a reason. It's for a reason.
Thank you.